After seeing talented people being made redundant at the BBC, Jono needed Plan B. It just so turns out that Plan B has been more successful than he ever thought. After 14 years, he's quit his job as a BBC journalist to sell full-time on eBay. This is Jono's story about selling online, and hear how he's excited about the third generation. Jono, you used to work at the BBC as a journalist. How on earth did you end up selling on eBay?
That's right. 1999 I started at the BBC working for BBC News. A couple of years ago, it was 2 years this month, November, me and a friend of mine who also works at the Beeb saw various very good, talented people get made redundant, and we thought, oh gosh, we need a plan B. So we set out, first of all, selling a few items on eBay, and then that grew and grew and grew. And we then started selling on Amazon. That grew and grew and grew. And sort of 2 years later, effectively, I turned Plan B into Plan A.
Nice.
My colleague is staying at the BBC, but I felt that the company needed someone full-time on it. So I jumped ship, as it were. It was a bit of a shock to them at the BBC, but I'm very pleased I've done it. Mm-hmm. Although technically I've only been doing it for sort of just over 2-3 weeks, because I left at the end of October. So
yeah, but let's put the whole picture there. You're walking into a business which you've been working on for quite a period of time, and you must be turning over at least 4,000 orders a month, something like that. So it's not a complete leap of faith. You know it's already there. Yes, and I mean we're turning over this time of year, sort of 500, 600, 700 orders a day. Jeez. It's a little bit scary. Okay. So for someone listening to this who hasn't seen you on eBay, what is your main product which you sell? Well, that took me... My dad's got lots and lots of marketing background, business background and everything. And he said, right, you've got to do your research of what on earth to sell. So we were completely fresh to it. And I probably took about 3 months of an idea of what on earth to sell. Mm-hmm. We knew that we didn't want to sell things like iPads and MacBooks because they are A, really expensive to have the stock, B, they get nicked in transit, C, oh, I can't turn it on or whatever. So we didn't. So first of all, we eliminated electronics. Then I've watched many a programme, and I've done lots of filming at sorting offices and Royal Mail depots, and have seen the way that the post is treated, i.e. thrown around. So we sort of said, right, it's got to have the drop test effectively, and also the kick around the sorting office test. So we actually came up with hosiery. So hats, gloves, scarves, socks, underwear, that sort of thing. Why that? Small, it's lightweight to send. If you receive a pair of socks, for example, that's slightly bluer than you thought, you're not really going to moan that much. It can be thrown around a sorting office. You can get quite a lot of stock for a small amount of money. So we started doing that. We found various suppliers, and it just went from there. And obviously, hopefully, most people wear underwear. You would hope so. Yes. So it's a constant need, as it were, and it's not one of those things that, oh, I can't afford it this month, or I can't really afford that because I'm trying to cut back on the purse strings. It's a product that hopefully you would just have, it's a necessity need rather than a luxury need. So it all started in houses. I mean, I remember my house, I'm sat here in my dining room, and the whole entire ground floor of my house was full of racking, boxes, packing stations. This is whilst I was working full-time at the BBC. Do you know what? This sounds so... Sorry to jump in there, Jono. That sounds so familiar. Yes. Is that I ran my business from my bedroom, and we ran out of racking space normally, so we put shelving all the way around the top half of the picture rails, which you can have in the Victorian houses. We put shelving all around that, and literally my bedroom was the warehouse and office all in one go. Yes. The other bit which I remember was sitting down with this chap called Tim, and Tim was my line manager at Xerox, and Tim thought I was nuts for leaving a corporate company to go and start by myself. And what about your pension? And what about the future? And I said, well, I don't know, but this is working. I'm spending more time working on this business than what I'm doing here during the day.
It's exactly the same. It's a big blue chip. I mean, I'm a public service company, job for life sort of thing. Even though you did see various people get made redundant, it's a very secure position. And yes, my parents were probably the most shocked. You know, oh my gosh, you're going to leave the BBC? I mean, it's one of probably the most companies that people are dying to get into. And 14 years down the road, I was dying to get out of it. So yeah, jump ship. Best decision I've made so far. Okay, I'm not even a month into it yet. I might regret that in 6 months' time, but...
well, at least you're going to try.
Yes.
You're in there, and you're kind of in there with both feet, but you've already had your finger in the water to see how warm it is anyway.
Yeah, but the house was full of stock. Just before last Christmas, it was so busy and so full of orders, and people would be letting themselves in the house at 7:30 every morning. I had absolutely no private space. The whole entire ground floor, right the way up to my kitchen, worktops, my fridge had all stuff all over it. So, and I said, we've got to get a business premises. So I did a bit of research and found a business premises sort of around about 4 miles away from here, my home. And we moved there just before Christmas last year, just as the orders started to sort of, you know, like you get this massive rush and then a drop. We moved just after the drop.
Oh, good timing. Good timing.
I sort of held on, you know, grin and bed, no privacy and no life for, you know, until then. And boom, we dropped and we moved quick and we were back up and running by, you know, Christmas, loads of new packing in and whatnot. I do all the ordering. I do all the listing. I mean, I use Turbo Lister for eBay, and I list manually on Amazon, which the pair of them are a pain. So this sort of Generation 3 style of listing in the future would be fantastic.
We'll get on to the third generation in a few moments, because the opening Skype message to us was absolutely hilarious for it. But I've got one very curious question. Did you start on eBay straight away, or did you go to Amazon? Did you try your own website? How did you get into the world of online selling?
eBay. I've bought lots of things on eBay in the past. I personally felt it was a little bit easier to sell things on eBay rather than Amazon, because Amazon you have to go through a bit more hoops and jumps to sell, especially in clothing.
Oh, you're in a gated category, yeah.
Yes. So you had to sort of almost prove yourself a little bit before they would ungate it, as it were. And that was a bit of a scary week, just applying to be, you know, for it. And then they said, yeah, of course you can. And it's like, oh, yes. So, eBay, I remember our very, very first sale. It was a pair of men's walking socks. And I remember vividly my business partner, Jason, I remember him saying, oh my gosh, we've got 18 orders. How on earth are we going to get all these out this evening? And now 18 orders, what? That's nothing. But granted, we didn't have bits of software that shipped everything to Royal Mail and did all the addresses and stuff. You know, we had to copy and paste and print out of eBay effectively.
Ooh, I'm getting shivers. I've been there and done that as well. For it. So are you using software at the moment? You mentioned Turbo Lister.
Yeah, effectively I use Turbo Lister to list on eBay, and because we're selling on eBay and Amazon, I needed a bit of software to sync the inventory. So we use Linworks.
Okay.
We quite like the idea of Linworks because it's a fixed fee. So it's an amount of money that I can guarantee every month, if that makes sense. Especially when we were younger and a smaller business, I had to know what my outgoings were. So that was a nice fixed amount and I knew how much they were going to take.
Okay, so let's change the topic on to the third generation. And when we added you into Skype, the opening message was 847 hours to go to G3. Are you excited about this third generation?
Yes, I am. I think a lot of your viewers and listeners will be, otherwise they wouldn't be viewing and listening for a start. But just the concept of everything in one place is absolutely fantastic. Yes, there's things like Lin Live with Linworks, And yes, there's eSeller Pro and there's all the other bits and pieces. But this way of going down the road of generation 3 or the third generation or whatever you want to call it is quite good because you own it all, effectively. If you want an extra bit of coding, you can pay a freelancer to do that extra bit of coding. There's so many bolt-ons and things, so all those little bugbears that we've got, it'd be fantastic to either have them at the start or, if not, pay coders to do it for us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And the business, again, we had our backs to the wall on this one, is that we couldn't use eSeller Pro. We couldn't use Channel Advisor. We did try the Limworks and we got 3 weeks in. And because of my experience and because of the business owner I was working with, because of his experience as well, this just wasn't going to work out. And we sat down and we looked at each other and this just isn't going to work. We need to find another solution. We then got a quote from another company and they wanted £500 per month and a percentage of sale because we had so many products.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, this can't happen. We had 61,000 products, 2,400 variations. We wanted eBay, Amazon and a website, which had to be Magento because of the variants which we had, because OpenCart doesn't support the level of control which we needed. And we were backed into that corner. We just couldn't move from it. We're like, oh, what do we do now?
Well, it's funny you say about the Magento side of things, because, yes, I looked at OpenCart, I looked at all of these things, and I always knew Magento was the beast bit of it. Mm-hmm. And every other cart and every other option, and I trialed all of them. I've got quite a good web experience background, and I trialed them, and I was like, no, it's not as good as Magento. No, it's not as good as Magento. It does this, it does that does really well, but no, it's not as good as Magento. And there was this constant loop of all the other possibly cheaper alternatives, and there was that exact same line, oh, it's not as good as Magento. So in the end, we bit the bullet and we've gone with Magento.
Right. Okay, so how have you found that?
I'm a bit of a stickler for speed, as loading times and pages need to load really quickly. I mean, I don't know if that's because of my web experience background.
No, I don't think you're alone. I've got 100 meg broadband in my home office, and anything which takes more than like a nanosecond,
yes,
and also being a gamer is labelled as lag, and that's
yes,
it.
Exactly. I've got 100 meg sitting here talking to you. So, yeah, that speed side of things, if there's any pause, I go nuts over it. And I was aware that Magento is very server hungry, and if you don't get the right package, it doesn't work very well, or it lags. It probably works fine, but it lags. So I've done lots of actual research, and we've actually decided to go with the Amazon, EC2 servers.
Oh, you've gone with the EC2 cloud service by Amazon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We've decided to use them because we've started with one website and there's going to be another and then another and then another. We've already got a couple lined up for next year, and we wanted that. Instead of paying, let's say, I don't know, you pay for a server and it's, let's say, £50 a month. Instead of paying that, with the benefit of Amazon, is you pay a lot less because you're not using it. You only pay the higher amount when you use it.
Yeah, because they break it down per processor usage time, data transferred, number of calls, etc., etc. So is that because of your experience here that you're okay with Linux?
I'm not okay with it, but a server guy is.
Right, I like your approach for that.
I could sit here and learn bits and pieces, and I could try and I could waste lots of time going round and round and round, or I could pay someone $20 or $50 to set it up and know that it's done in a tenth of the time, and it's done properly, and it doesn't have great big back doors that all the convicts of the internet can get through, and it's nice and secure, and I've got someone that backs the system up and I can rely on to tweak things and update things and whatnot. I'm relatively new to Magento. We have released our first site, but it's all rather new for us because obviously we started on eBay and Amazon. So yeah, Magento, it's, the latest thing. We know we need to use it. I mean, I've got M2E Pro installed. I know I need to use it. I know I need to learn it. Even with my quite good web experience, it's a bit of a mind twister of all the various templates, and then you've got all of the various attributes that go with each product, and there's all the different colours that could be, and all of this, all the size differences, just from girls' socks to boys' socks to ladies' underwear to whatever it is. There's a lot of attributes that are needed, and that's all a little bit scary. So at the moment, I'm just using TurboLister.
That's actually a very curious thing which we've run into. So we've run into a couple of businesses which don't have any software at all. And something which we've been working on is an export tool from eBay. So you literally just put your token in, just authorize the token. It will go to eBay for you. It will download all of your inventory straight off of eBay. I say straight, and because it's not real time and it takes hours. Because the eBay API is not that fast when you want to get data back out of it. So if you've got 1,000 listings, it's 2 seconds a pop, so it will take a while. But once you've got the data, once you've got your listings out, you literally just, the idea is that you press a button once she's complete, and it will give you the export sheet, which you can directly import into Magento using MagMe. It will also tell you which attributes you need to create for configurable products, like config_size, config_color, etc., etc. It will also tell you which attribute sets you need to create, and that will be based upon the variants which you've got on eBay. So I'm looking at some slippers right now, and you've got shoe size and type. So that tells us that we need an attribute set called shoe size type.
Yes.
Okay, and it will give you the list, and it will be based upon facts of what you're actually using from it. So you can then create them, and it just makes life an awful lot easier.
Well, that sounds fantastic, because I've got the Magento, I've got the eBay, I've got the Amazon, I've got M2E, but I just don't know how to use it. And it will use up days and days and days of my time and effort to learn how to use stuff and what's the best way of importing things in. And then I'll probably get it all wrong and have to do it all again. So anything that will help that side of things is fantastic.
Again, we're kind of excited as well, because it's what I needed 10 years ago. And I went from scraping emails out of my inbox, the end of auction, the end of transaction emails, and then using inbox rules to then put them into an Excel spreadsheet and then process them out of there. And then I started using MarketWorks, and MarketWorks was like light years ahead of what I had then. And then I ended up working at eSeller Pro, and everything which had like frustrated me at MarketWorks and also as a business owner either was or could be answered in it. But the problem with that is that with these second generation software providers is that they can be really expensive, because they'll take a percentage of sell, and there isn't any percentage of sell in this generation. If you want the RawMail integration, then you buy it off the shelf. But if you don't, because you use TNT or DPD, you'd have that one instead. Or none of them, because you're quite happy just printing the invoices out and working from those. And it is literally, it's a generation of choice. If you want it, you add it. If you don't, you don't. Oh, and if it doesn't exist, you can get it done for you.
Yes. I mean, I might sound like I'm moaning about Linworks, but Linworks is very, very good at getting orders out the door fast. I have all of our invoices, we print invoices. I don't like sending an item out in the post with no invoice in. Yep, some sellers do that, but I don't like doing it, because I feel that's not very nice. It's a bit rude, I think. Anyway, we've got barcodes on the top of invoices, so everything gets scanned and it pulls up the order and it automatically prints the thermal label out, and and then you hit the space bar and it's gone. It's very, very quick at getting 5, 6, 7, 800 orders out the door a day. That's possibly one of the areas which I'm a little tiny bit concerned with, because although we'll have benefits on other areas, at the end of the day, hopefully all of this is to get you more orders. And if you have more orders and you need to take more time to do it, then that's the only concern I've got, really.
And again, we're being open on this, and we're wearing this on our sleeves almost, is that we're not pretending that we've got all the answers. And we're absolutely paranoid that we're going to miss something really obvious. And that's why we've been listening intently. We've been speaking to people just like you, the actual business owners, to see what you want and what you need, and then finding solutions. And again, I'm just going to turn around and look at my whiteboard, and there's a list of stuff up there which we just don't have answers to right now. But the thing is that we know that it's possible. And with your help, with Dave's help and everybody else's help, that we can actually make a difference, and we can make a system which I needed 10 years ago and is now far superior than anything which I ever needed it for, and it can help you and a lot of people across the globe.
The beauty about this sort of software and this way of doing things is someone can do a bit of coding and then share it with everyone else. You're not gated by some corporate company that will only do things if 1,000 people vote on a web page that they actually want it. One person can say, well, I want this, and they can go off and pay a freelancer to do it. I know Linworks have a page where if you want stuff, you can go and vote for it. But I don't know how many people have to vote for something for them to actually do it.
Well, funny you should say that. Again, to be completely open with you, we've got that kind of environment with M2E Pro as well, as in that they have a voting mechanism. And again, they've been really responsive. So, really hat tip to the guys over at M2E Pro. So when I put probably the most comprehensive ticket they've ever seen or suggestion gone into their things, and then emailed a few thousand people to say, we need this. Can you go and press this button? Is that we will be sat there with a weight of a pretty large community sat behind it. So we are still stuck with relying on a third party, okay, to a degree, especially when it comes to the eBay integration, because M2E Pro are the ones which have got that integration, that they've got their roadmap and they're following it, but they are listening and they are taking notice of what we're suggesting. But this generation, the only way which the third generation can go into a fourth generation, if this makes sense, and I'd actually better explain that for anybody listening. So if you're listening to this and you're hearing me talk, and Jonathan and Dave talk about generations, is that the first generation is Turbo Lister. It's Selling Manager Pro or Amazon Seller Desktop. It's proprietary software which just works with one marketplace. And back in about 1999, a couple of companies started to change. They started to add in multiple sales channels, and that with the next progression was Amazon. You also had Yahoo stores as well. And then you've now got today a plethora of different second generation software providers. We've mentioned Linworks, we mentioned Nisla Pro, we mentioned Channel Advisor. There's a whole host in the UK. There's only 2 or 3 main ones in the United States. And if you're in Germany, you've got about 17 different ones to choose from. But we wanted to distinguish what we were up to be something different from what's going on. And this generation, this new way of doing it is completely different. Is that you have a base system. We want Magento, not for the website piece on this. We want it for the inventory management, the order management, and its open source piece, so that you can add it when you want to and you don't. But my point was, with the fourth generation, the only way for this to go is for you to have control over the integration with eBay, as in that you run that from your server. So right now, if you were to go into Magento and then hit list on eBay, what actually happens is that you send that to the M2E Pro server and they do the complicated piece. And that's actually really handy because that keeps the amount of updates down in M2E Pro. If there's any API or interface changes for the marketplaces, then they take care of it. That's why there's very few releases on M2E Pro. Whereas the only way this could go into a fourth generation is that you then take on the ownership for that. And that's the one piece you never want because it always changes. Something always breaks. So given enough time, something will break, something will change, and you'll have to make an update. And this is why we like this generation a lot, because someone's doing that ugly bit for us. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And the fact that, you look at eBay one day and you look at eBay the next day and they're constantly changing, tweaking, fiddling, some people might say, but all of those changes obviously need to be reflected in the API access and the extra, like, for example, the returns that they've recently introduced, and all of that needs to be sorted, and having that done by sort of M2E Pro that know what they're doing and are actually a part, they're owned by eBay. Am I right?
Almost right. So eBay now own Magento. They actually owned half of it for a very long time, but never publicised it, and then finally bought it. And it was only in the last week or so that they've actually changed the main Magento site and put Magento, an eBay company, next to it. And M2E Pro is subsidised by eBay. It has been for, I think, the last 2 years, something like that. And eBay looks like it's going to remain free at least for 2014, probably a lot longer as well.
Is that possibly, because it's an eBay company, is that why possibly in the future that they could be charging for the Amazon bit of it?
Absolutely. I'm glad you raised that because I couldn't. Which is that, yeah, these guys have spent literally thousands of hours doing this integration. And that one part of that integration is the Amazon integration. And of course, if you were at eBay and you had this app which you were subsidizing for eBay and they could also sell on Amazon for free, you probably wouldn't like that. I know I wouldn't.
No.
So in 2014, expect M2E Pro to be paid for some form of billing system for Amazon. Now, we're not tied to M2E Pro in this third generation. The one piece which we're tied to is Magento. I mean, again, we don't want it for the website. We want it for the inventory and the order management and the open source piece to it. So if M2E Pro gets silly and start charging too much for Amazon, there are not just one, but there are 3 other integrations available for Amazon. And it will be a straightforward mathematical decision, is M2E Pro costing us too much for Amazon? Or the other side to it, is it easy just for me to keep using M2E Pro and pay them some money because they've spent the last 18 months giving it away for free, and it actually is quite good and I like it. And that will be a decision which we'll take as a group and also individually when that time comes as well. Does that sound fair?
Yes, that sounds perfectly fair. The fact that, eBay have developed this software. And I, as a business owner, I wouldn't like to sort of develop a software for a competitor to come along and list easier on eBay, for example, because it's like, well, hang on a minute, I want them to come to me, not to them. So I can understand what eBay are doing, and I can understand if costs come in. But as you say, right at the very, very beginning of the conversation, costs are going up yearly with Linworks. There's costs with all the other platforms, per sale. So overall, you would like to hope that it would be a lot cheaper to go with sort of third generation side of things. So
yeah, absolutely. You pay when you want it or you need it, and if you don't, you don't. The only thing which you need is a decent hosting, and it sounds like you've got that lit completely with the Amazon Cloud.
Yes.
We've actually chosen Simple Servers, and a couple of days ago we actually interviewed Simon, one of the directors from Simple Servers, and those guys are going to be fantastic. If anybody wants starting out and then need to grow, that was actually one of the conditions for the Simple Servers, is that if they upgrade, can you do the complicated part for them? And the irony was that, yes, of course we can, Matt, because that's actually very easy for us to do. We just do a cPanel move. Oh, brilliant. So there's some of the reason behind why we're going with Simple Servers, because they've also got the dedicated support there as well.
Yes. Well, I would like to say I knew EC2, the Amazon servers, but as I said, 10, 15 minutes ago, I've got a server guy for that. I find it's a lot better use of my time and money to pay someone else to do these it doesn't cost much, but these little things, and know that it's done right, rather than me spend days and days doing it, and it might all be wrong by the end of it still. So
that alone is the third generation.
Yes.
You've realised that you don't want to do that bit, or you don't know more about that bit, and someone could do that bit better, and you've just gone and found someone who will do that for you. That is essentially the third generation of what we're doing.
I think I remember, because I've been reading your blogs and your forums and everything for quite a while, and I think, Matthew, I remember you discovering M2E Pro. When did you discover it?
I've known about it for two or more years, because one of the design companies which we work with in India, one of their the owners, one of his best friends, was one of the original developers for it. And so I've always known that it's been around. And it wasn't until we had our backs to the wall, and this was in March of 2013, when what we had just wasn't going to work. And the conversation went something like, why don't we have a look at M2E Pro? Look, I know Magento backwards. I can get data in there very, very quickly. We can process orders, and we were dealing with the 90% of virtual business anyway. I can get stock updates in. I can get orders out to your supplier via the API, and those updates, I can get them back in. And of course, M2E Pro will kick them in. And the reply got back, which was, Matt, go for it. You've got 3 weeks. If it was September, I'd be panicking. But it's March, and you've got 3 weeks. See what you can do.
I remember you getting excited about it. I remember reading something or seeing something or seeing a blog post and thinking, he's discovered this new sort of area. And it's been an interesting journey to see you progress it effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, on the Last Drop of Ink site, I have been really quiet. And the reason why I've been really quiet is because I've been learning.
Yes.
And I've been taking, so give you a head to toe, like, I ran my own eBay business. I then worked at MarketWorks in support and implementations. So that was the best part, 150, 200 different businesses.
Yeah.
Then at eSeller Pro, the two names which most people recognise are Tesco Outlet. We got them live in 7 days. In fact, they went live when I wasn't even in the country, which was the scariest thing of all. Like, Tesco are going live and I'm in Malta. And thankfully, Kim, if you're listening to this, I love you for it, because she handled it went really smoothly. They turned over an obscene amount in their first week. And the other company was Office Shoes. The other companies are the 99% of the other big eBay and Amazon sellers, which you've probably never heard of. And I've seen it. I've implemented them. One of my specialities was taking channel advisor clients and implementing them into eSeller Pro. I know how data works. I know how it flows. I know many different aspects, but I'm also humble enough, and the same for Dave as well. We're also humble enough to say that we don't know everything. We've got a very good idea, but it always depends on what your needs are, because you're the pivotal piece to it. If you need something to work in a specific way and it's not unreasonable, it's then finding the answers to make it work that way.
And that's the benefit of a bit of software that is open source, that you can tweak and you can change and progress. It's not gated by some corporate customer that will only do stuff when they have enough tickets for it.
Indeed.
I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at what we've tweaked and changed already, Matt, because, just in the past sort of 2 or 3 months, we've done new designs for this. We've got a fantastic relationship with one of the extension developers who's gone away and implemented not just one, but about 5 or 10 sort of revisions of what we said would be an amazing feature. It's amazing how things have changed in just a short period of time.
It's amazing also how you have gone back to something M2E Pro and said, right, this, and this, and they've actually listened to you. That's half the battle.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's something which I'd like to take, and Dave would like to take, I hasten to add there, is to take it one stage further, is that I can't tell you how many businesses I'm aiming for January the 1st, but when this goes live, it's going to go live quickly.
You see these people that say that they wish they did stuff and you're so lucky. It's like, no, I got off my arse and did it.
That's the crucial. You're off your ass.
It's exactly the same point. I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, Jonathan. He's an American guy, really eccentric, but he basically said, whatever you do, if you take a risk, you can't lose. Even if you fail, you still win, purely because you take a risk, you get, and it fails, you get to 80, you look back on yourself and go, well, at least I give it a go.
Yes.
Said, can you imagine that feeling of getting to 80 and not giving it a go and just thinking, what if?
Yeah.
What if I would have tried that? He said that must be the worst feeling in the world. And I agree with him.
I just think it's, again, this is just the way I'm wired, and it sounds like you've got very similar wiring, is just go and do it. Just go and take the action, go and make it happen. And my personal view on failure is bring it on, because my last year's New Year's resolution was to fail, and some people just really didn't get that idea. What, you're aiming to fail next year? Are you mad? if I fail at something like I did today spectacularly, right? Me and Dave had a bit of a panic station because I sent out an email wrong. And it just
yeah. Dear Dave.
Yeah, which you've got.
That's a PHP bit of script, balls up, if ever I saw one.
Right. And my fault. Totally my fault. And that is okay. If I make a mistake like that, is because I am trying really, really, really hard. And failure's got to come. I've got to be slapped in the face for it. Not just like once, like today. I need it every day. And if I'm getting...
You'll know next time not to do it like that.
Oh, but the irony is I actually did it once before.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, Matt's got this new thing where it's too late, I've pressed the send button. And that's his new game.
Yeah, that's my new game. I'm not holding back. I'm not umming, I'm not ahhing, I'm just taking action. Write an email, send.
When you said about I want to fail, I mean, I worked at Granada Services years and when I was like 16, 17, and I never forget one member of staff saying about complaints and complaint slips and the things that people fill in at motorway services and at restaurants. And she said if she can correct every complaint that she's been told about, then the place will be a much better place because you will have ironed out all of the complaints. If no one tells you that you're doing something wrong or you couldn't find something or whatever, then you don't know to fix it. Does that make sense?
It does. There's a whole book on that called Tipping Point, which I'm very, very quickly Googling or looking on Amazon, actually.
Tipping Point. Okay.
Yeah, the Tipping Point. Fantastic book. And if you can get a hold of the audio version, much, much better is the audio version. It's The Tipping Point, How Little Things Can Make a Big Difference by Malcolm Gladwell. It is an absolutely amazing book. And one of the examples which she's got in that book, and again, I haven't read it for about a year, is that it was to do with broken windows. And that's what this mayor, the city, I think it was New York, and he focused on the little things, fixing the broken windows. Because if people then saw that there weren't any broken windows, they started to care about what they were doing. So it's gone off on a slightly different topic. Jono, Christmas is coming up really quickly. Is it going to be your best year yet? What's happening for you?
This year's Christmas, without a doubt, is looking already to probably be about 3 times bigger than last year's Christmas. Wow. Now, obviously, the first Christmas, we were only about 3 weeks in, and we only had about 4 product lines, so that's sort of almost negligible. But already we're seeing daily orders as the same as our peak day last year, which I think was something like the 3rd of December. We're already going past that sort of every day at the moment. So it's a little bit scary, and it's sort of trying to manage the stock levels as well. I've never spent so much money on stock in all my life. But, if you haven't got it for sale, you're not going to sell it. So, yes, this Christmas will be a big one for us, I think. We've got very good positions in a number of different categories, bang at the top of them all, good feedbacks. Well, I think we've got good feedbacks to the quantity of orders that we do, especially in eBay and Amazon.
Yeah, you're running on 99%, 99.9%. You're doing good.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shame when we lost our 100%, but you can't please everyone, and thankfully a lot of the complaints are those sorts of complaints that people will complain anyway. You can't do anything. You can't please everyone all the time.
Especially on eBay. Not a true word has been said.
Yes. I mean, it's very, very, very different types of customer. eBay and Amazon,
Definitely.
very, very different.
Definitely.
I think for every 500 eBay messages, you probably only have about 1 Amazon message asking stuff. It's like, well, if you read the listing, it'll be in there. But anyway, moving on. Okay,
so when we asked you what your aims were for 2014, we burst out of laughter. Jonathan, can you say, what are your aims for 2014?
Why did you burst out laughing? Well, I don't know.
Because you mentioned about having a salary.
Yes. Right. So what are my aims for 2014? Well, first of all, this is my job now. So that's the paramount, most important thing for me, is to be able to pay for the roof over my head and fuel in the car, food on the table. A little bit daunting after 14 years of having a salary in my bank every month to suddenly dealing it myself, but I think it's just going to be listing, getting more and more products for sale and getting more options for people to buy. I personally think it's quite simple maths. The more things you have available...
I see where you're going with that one, is that it's just the laws of averages. If you've got more items available, then more people are going to view it, and the chance of someone buying it is much, much higher.
Yeah, it's common sense, really, but it's quite evident when you suddenly list a load of things, when you're really busy one week and you list loads of things, and then suddenly the following week, so everyone's flat out, it's like, oh, this is good. If I listing equals more sales, it's obvious, really, but you've got to do it for you to realise it, I think.
Indeed, and on that note, what one piece of advice would you give to someone who's listening to this and who wants to start their own e-commerce business, or maybe is already running their own e-commerce business? What one little tidbit of advice would you give them?
Look at people that sell things in the area that you want to sell in and do better than them. That would be my number one tip. Be it better feedback, better prices, better photos, better descriptions. Descriptions would be good. There's so many sellers that don't even write a description. It's just, But look at a competitor and write down a list of all the things that they're doing wrong. Just like back when I worked at a motorway services and they wanted to get all of the complaints letters and whatnot, because if you iron out all of the things that you're doing wrong, then you're going to be on a winner.
So you could almost do a SWOT analysis on your competition and look at the weaknesses and work on them.
Yes, because quite quickly, I mean, we, being television people, we take quite a lot of pride in the photos that we do. And having that sort of journalistic background, be it especially on television where your pictures have got to look good, we've put quite a lot of our effort into the photo side of our listings. And, you know, you put our photos next to some of our competitors are shockingly bad in comparison, but hopefully that's one of those things that would be ironed out and people can't moan at us for bad photos, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, understood. So just basically be better than anybody else.
Yeah, look at your competition, write down a list of all the things that they're doing wrong or you don't like, or get other people to look at their listings and what do you like, what don't you like. Copy all the good bits. Not copy, but you know what I mean.
Use them for inspiration.
Yes, use that for inspiration and sort out all of the things that they're doing wrong.
Jono, that has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to talk to us, because we are recording this in November. It is like the biggest time of the year for you, and also sharing your insight as well. Thank you.
It's okay.
If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, this isn't the first and it's certainly not the last interview with the cool people just like you, business owners that want to succeed, and you can hear more interviews just like this one at understandingE.com/podcasts. However, we've got one request for you to help myself, Matt, Dave, and also Jono too. At the bottom of this article, and again we're assuming that you're on the site at understandingE.com, there is some share buttons. Hit one or all four of these to share this story. We'd appreciate it greatly. See you next time. Cheerio!